I had a dream this morning. That okay, so it started off with what I believe me being led through an alley, or on like the back of a building with Samuel L. Jackson and a large group of other people. It wasn't very large; it was about 15 other people, and it was this Chinese store owner, and he had a suit on, and he takes us into this finally into this, it's like like mind you, we're walking on the dirt, walking on the dirt behind this, building, walking alongside the building, the big white building, or one story, 1.5 story building is to our right. And he's like, all right, we're here. And then there's this random white door. We step off of the grass and the dirt into this restaurant, and it looks like a small apartment, but the apartment is nice, and I could smell like, okay, this smells like a old building, but this apartment is really nice and it doesn't stink, but it, you know, could tell that it was in a building that had probably been there a while. So it was that sort of like reconstruction smell. I don't know how to explain that, but it didn't stink. The inside of the apartment was fine. I smelled a little bit of the Chinese seasonings and a little bit of the seasonings and things. It smelled fresh in there as well. I could smell like I smell it now. I'm thinking about it, but I don't know what that smell was. It reminded me of like it's like a not so much rose, but a little bit brighter than rose. I don't know what it is, but I can smell it right now. But it smells good, however. But yeah, I smelled that in the dream, and it's nothing I have around me right now. That's for sure, but my brain is telling me, okay, it was the smell. But on with the dream. Um, he offers us Chinese food. He jumps behind the counter, or he doesn't jump. He just walks behind the counter, and he has two other chefs back there. There's a woman, and I saw the other chef. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman. I just know they had a hat on, and I couldn't see much detail about that person, but they were cooking. And so it was the three of them in there with Samuel, and then it was me, Samuel Jackson, and this group of people, 15 or so, 10 or so people standing in front of the counter ready to order. Some people are looking at some people are looking at menus. Samuel Jackson looks at the menu, and I go to lean in just a little bit, not too, like over his shoulder or anything, but I lean in a little bit, because I didn't have a menu. So I went to go look at the menu to see what to order. And I saw that it said something fried rice, but it had the picture and it looked like I don't know what it was, but it was like imagine if you saw like tamarind inside the shell, like with the shell and everything, but that with light brown, like breading. It was kind of like that with rice. And but I don't know what it was. It said fried something with rice. I leaned in and I looked at it. I saw that. He looked back, or he didn't look back, but he just kind of looked up and looked to the right and to the left, and just kind of was like, and he shook his hand and he was like, no, I'm good. And he turned around. He did like a full, like the way he was facing, he kind of like did a 180 and then a little bit more of the angle to where the door was. It was to my left, and I'm standing behind him. He's not standing straight. He's standing like facing my 2 o'clock, if you will. And that's when I looked at the menu, because there were other people looking at the menu with him. And he's standing in front of me looking at 2 o'clock, and the way I'm facing. So, and the way he was facing was 2 o'clock. And so he turns around and does 180. He kind of does like this 180 and continues on out the door. And like, he was like really not disgusted with the restaurant. I don't know, it was just something that suddenly was just like, and I thought it was me because of me looking over his shoulder. Because when I looked over his shoulder, that's when he was like, I don't know. And that's when he turned away. So I felt like it was me that may have upset him, but I'm not sure. But he turns and he leaves. And I'm looking at the menu. I look at the menu. There people are still holding it. And he's no longer holding it. They all were holding it together, but he left. They were holding it. I look at it, and then I kind of, I'm like, I'm wondering what happened. What gave him the vibe? I'm like, should I eat here? I started having questions myself a little bit, but the food looked good. So I was like, let me go try to find him and ask, like what was going on. And in the back of my mind, when I also thought about that, I was like, oh man, I hope he didn't think I'm just some celebrity suck up, like trying to follow him. But I'm thinking all this as I'm headed out the door, and I'm like, thank you. And I walk out, I say thank you to the people. I walk out, and he's walking down suddenly there's a breezeway, like a half breezeway, like where we came in, like, mind you, this building was to our right, and it was a dirt, like, yard, sort of grass. But when I followed him out the door, and I followed him out the door to the left. Mind you, when we walked into the building, we walked into the right. When I walk out into the left, he's walking up a breezeway. Like, suddenly there's a breezeway. There's more developed city. He's under a half breezeway where, like, the side of the building is now, of course, to our left now. And it's got companies, like glass windows. Like, I don't know what those companies were. Like, like when you're walking on a breezeway, you see like Verizon store or T-Mobile or whatever in like a busy, little strip mall or whatever. It's kind of like that now. But before, it was just plain white building with some doors, some vents, like for, AC inserts. Like, there's just different, like, regular stuff, like electrical box doors, whatever. Regular, like, plain building, but now all of a sudden it has these companies, right? So, got that clear. I'm walking, and to our right is like an open of the breezeway. There's streets, all that stuff. And I'm trying to be as detailed as possible, so I apologize if it seems like I'm dragging on. But so I'm walking behind him. He says, or he looks back at me, and he just continues walking more. Like, he rolled his eyes a little bit, and he continues walking more. And I was like, oh dang! I was like, yeah, I definitely upset him in some way. And I was like, hey, I'm sorry, sir. And I didn't want to call him Samuel L. Jackson, like, to sound like paparazzi chasing him or whatever. I was like, hey, sir, yeah, I'm sorry. If it seems I'm following you, but I was like, I'm just wondering, like, what didn't you like about the restaurant? Was there anything that, I should be worried about? Or, I was like, is everything okay? And then he was like, nah, like, you wouldn't, the comment he made, man, I have to remember what I said, because the comment he made was almost as if he was being condescending. It was just sort of off-putting in a way of like, okay, this is what it felt like to me. I'm just going to say it, and I'm not going to curse. But it sort of felt like, well, Blackie, you wouldn't know the difference anyway. That's what it felt like. It was insane. That was sort of the statement. It was just like, well, Blackie, like, you wouldn't know anyway. Just to sort of putting me off and putting me down and making me feel, dumb in that moment. But I had nothing to feel dumb about. I was just trying to, I was like, what was going on? I was like, what went down? And maybe there is something in that restaurant that he noticed, that I shouldn't have been messing with. And just a sidebar here outside of the dream, I no longer eat at restaurants and things because I know that there are certain, and not just Chinese places, like all places, all restaurants have some sort of preservative, some sort of something that they put in their food that isn't good for you. So to consider the dream, I'm thinking it's possible that he had a realization in that moment of looking at the menu and was like, I don't need to be eating this. And maybe that's why he possibly said, him not knowing that I no longer eat at restaurants in real life. I mean, obviously, but him not knowing and seeming that I was ready to eat at that restaurant and me having to ask is possibly why he said what he said. Like, why he was so rude about it. Well, there's no reason to be rude about it, but maybe that's why he was like, oh, you wouldn't know anyway. Given that, bunch of people still eat at Chinese restaurants or public restaurants or things like that. And there's nothing wrong with eating at restaurants. People enjoy what they want to enjoy, but maybe that's why he came off to me in that way. I don't know, though. I don't know, because I don't judge people because of what they eat or whatever. So I don't know, but it hurt when he said it, though. Regardless, it hurt. But I wasn't mad at him. I was like, well, okay, and I continued to be kind and respectful. I was like, okay, sir. I was like, well, okay, sir. I was like, well, yeah, well, have a good day, and he walked off. He just kept walking the other way, and he continued on straight. I peered off to the left, and I just started walking. Then I ended up at a place, so I opened up the door, and there he is, like right in front of me, and here I am, right to his immediate right, as he's sitting on this couch lounging, watching TV. To my right, I see my dad and a non-blood related uncle sitting on the couch, and they're all watching TV. Samuel Jackson doesn't react, like, why are you following me, anything. He's just sitting there like he knew I was going to be there. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it was just weird. So I just kind of walked past him. I didn't say that we saw each other at the restaurant or anything. I didn't continue questioning him. I just kind of walked past him. And I walk into the back room, and there's this pile of dishes on the bed, and my aunt is sitting next to them. The aunt that's married to, now this is my blood aunt, and she's married to the non-blood related uncle that's sitting on the couch next to my dad. This aunt of mine is sitting there, and she's putting on like her socks or whatever, like she's getting dressed ready to go out somewhere. I go to grab the stack of plates, to volunteer to to put them in the sink, and she's like, no, you're gonna break. She was like, no, you're gonna break the dishes. I was like, oh no. She was like, no, let me see. She starts slipping plates out of my hand. I'm holding like 8 plates. And there was this one plate that stuck out like an oval, and it was dark blue, and it stuck out to the right in between my thumb and my index finger, but I still had a hold onto it, while the other round plates all around it, that plate was probably the third from the bottom. All the other plates are straight. That one was a little bit, out there. And I don't know why I grabbed it that way, but I did. And it had something written on it. It was nothing bad, but I remember the letters, just like, I don't know what they stand for. It was a 3-letter, like an acronym almost. And they were written in turquoise and pink on this dark blue plate. It was like turquoise letter, pink letter in the middle, and then turquoise letter. It was written towards the top of, like, around the oval. It wasn't in the center of the plate. It was written towards the top of the oval, or the side of the plate that was more ovular, or the point side of the oval. But I'm holding the plates. She's still like, no, like, let me, and she's slipping plates out. She slipped the oval plate out. She slipped another flat plate out, but I still I was carrying them. I was like, I got you, auntie. And then sure enough, and then when I go in there, I'm walking past another TV. This TV is on the other side to my left now. Mind you, the TV was to the right when I walked into the door. And, Sam Jackson sitting in front of me, and my uncle and father to my right. But, so if I were walking in the door, I would have seen it in front of me to my 1 o'clock, if you will. Just to give a good description of where the TV was now. Because the TV was at first to my 3 o'clock when I first walked into the building. My cousin, the aunt, it was her oldest daughter. She was standing in front of the TV organizing. Stay tuned if you want to hear the rest of part 2. I'm going to upload it separately. Small little clay trinkets and things. She was organizing them. And I walked past.